It was a 5 week session. This week is the fourth week, and we're going to be speaking on oneness. It's a chapter coming from my book. Oneness is actually important to marriages because a lot of individuals don't have that oneness, and so a lot of times things are overlooked or it's swept under the rug, or you just simply don't see things that's happening on the outside with our partner, is because we don't have that oneness. We cannot detect when our spouses are in trouble, and so this is why I thought it was a very important chapter to write. Byron and I, it took us years to actually find respect for each other, to find a bond that nothing can come between us, that we will be together through thick and thin. We didn't have that for years. So even in us getting married, we did not have that. We had to actually build that, and it came through a lot of disappointments and trials and trauma and tragedies. But we've learned and we've grew, and we thank God for where we are today. Bless God. We never really think about being one because everybody wants to kind of keep their identity. Everybody wants to make sure that they don't lose themselves in the process of being married. They want to make sure they have their own. And if you're in agreement with your husband, or your husband is leading and guiding you, you hear some folks say you're being controlled. You have your own mind, and things like that. And so you can't build that oneness because a lot of individuals or putting their input in your marriage. And this is why God said, for this reason, a man will leave his father and his mother and be united to his wife, and they will become one. And that's because it was just too much outside distraction. And we still find that today, that there's too much distraction in our marriages. I mean, there are things that, we shouldn't even be leaving outside of the home, because some things are meant to be dealt with, both the partners, but, sometimes it's so overwhelming, we have to bring someone in, and then that's not good because then that causes confusion, you see. So, but if you look at Adam and Eve, in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, when they were operating in oneness, on one accord, they were united in the garden. They were getting along with one another, tending to one another without distraction, until there was someone else lurking in the garden. And we already know who that was. That was the serpent. And the serpent, don't always have to come in the form of the devil. It can come in, it can come by way of our jobs coming between us, our careers. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many couples fight about money. Intimacy, one of the partners being sick and ill, so people can, they can draw apart, and they can be, and their oneness can be affected by those things. But not only is it the things that separate us, but it's also people that separate us too. Like, say for instance, family members. Sometimes, no matter how sweet, how cute, how smart, and how decent you are, some in-laws is just not going to care for you. And sometimes it's not even personal. Sometimes it's just basically you losing, they feel like they're losing their loved ones, and they feel like they spend, their loved ones are spending so much time with you that they don't have enough time to spend with their loved ones. Sometimes it's not really even personal. To solve that, you can probably just invite them to some functions or some children events, to kind of keep the matters down. But you should always be cautious, not to spread marital issues amongst the family members, because our family members has a lack of tolerance when someone is being mistreated, and that's just because they love us. That's just because they love us. But every now and then, you got to find someone that's not judgmental about your relationship, about your marriage. You need to find someone that you can confide in and that will support you, as you walk through your process on whatever it is that you're going through with your husband. And sometimes it's not only family members, it can be friends. So we have to learn how to be cautious on what we even tell our friends. Unless you're getting ready to handle your business, and you're prepared to leave or do whatever you need to do, because of their love for you and because of the mistreatment that you're going through, their first option is to take your bags and you need to walk out. Because some individuals have little to no tolerance for, let's say, on the subject of adultery, but they'll have a high dose of tolerance for an abusive relationship. See, sometimes they would, down you from kind of working out your relationship, but they won't tell you what's going on inside of their relationship. You'll never know that. So it's funny to me because everyone, is dealt a spoonful of grace in their marriage. So what may be difficult for them might not be difficult for you. You see what I'm saying? So you have to make sure that you understand, how much information you want to release, how long you want to vent about it, and make sure you can trust that individual to be supportive and not judgmental. Well, most of the times when you marry, you got to filter out things because, we face demons individually from our childhood, from our adulthood, and we come together in marriage. And then now we're facing our partner's demons too. Then you're facing the generational spirits. So, and then some spirits are even, you got to deal with over time. You guys have created things that you got to deal with. And so that's why you have to be very cautious on what you say and how you say it. But family members and friends, they can be a distraction, but it also can be our exes. Where really you would be amazed to find out how many people walk down the aisle and say I do was still having feelings for their ex. Okay, so it's a huge deal because you cannot become one with your partner if you're still thinking about Johnny, because you still have those feelings for Johnny. And every now and then, I've had people to tell me they kind of like bring up their name or call their partner their ex's name, and that's unforbidden. That's like a whole throwdown fight right there to do that. And so we just got to make sure that family, friends, and our exes are not coming in between our relationship, because they can cause us a delay in the process of becoming one with our partner. And so for this reason, that's why God said cleave to your wife or cleave to your husband. It's just you and him. I find when you get older in age, you're kind of like, it's only me and you, babe. Vice versa. It's just like we got to have one another's back, and so I'm not saying don't confide in someone. Absolutely not. Because the Bible tells us to confess our sins one to another and pray for one another that we be healed. And the Bible also says in the multitude of counselors, there's safety. But some people are not called to be counselors. And some people should not advise you on anything. Period. Because sometimes some people can advise you and they will destroy your entire marriage on just their advice alone, because they had failed relationships and failed marriages, and now they're imploding their bad advice on you, and you're believing it, and now you got chaos going on in your home. And so when we become one, it's a merging of the two people together. It's a fine mixture of the mind, body, soul, and the spirit. And it's a perfect, intimate sharing of two lives. And that can be difficult sometimes. While it is possible for your husband, for you guys to have different tastes, different music, different hobbies, different religions and things like that, you still have to have a meeting line somewhere where you guys can meet up together and come in agreement. What's important, that you guys are actually coming together and being on one accord. Okay? Becoming one in the flesh can be very difficult. When you become married, you have to have the capacity to forgive and to forget. Even the most unforgivable things, you got to learn how to keep it moving in your marriage. Because sometimes, our partners can do some things that's unforgivable and unforgettable. But in order for you to become back one again, you got to build that capacity and that courage to come together and say, you know what, I'm going to let it go. Make sure you have a conversation about it, though, so that it won't happen again. Because no one has time to be going around in circles dealing with the same issue all over again. That shouldn't be. And then on top of that, you got to be humble. You got to humble yourself and get understanding. Like, we can't become one because you are like this and I'm like this, and we got these habits and we got these nasty ways, and we can't come together and build something and come into harmony when we're always fighting. So some things you got to confront. Some things you got to pray about. Some things you just got to leave it there. I believe that man errors is not finding out who someone truly is before marriage. So I think that if I had took time to say, okay, let me ask you something. Let me find out what type of people you have in your family. Let's find out what I'm going to be expecting, because you really don't know how a person is until after you're pretty much married and you got like 2 children down, and then you say, oh my God, so this is the real you? And so now you're in your marriage and you got to fight or fold. So you either got to put up or you got to deal with the punches, make it work, make it happen, and just kind of like you got to deal with it and get it out of your marriage so you guys can come back on one accord. So if you understand his makeup, how he is, it is more easier for us as wives to be more supportive towards our partner's personal struggles, because they are coming in with struggles. We coming in with baggage. So everybody's coming into marriage with something. It's just a matter of time when those things will start unpacking itself and those things will start unfolding. And that's when you got to learn how to deal with those things. Like, for instance, like me and my husband, when we got married, he has a whole different way of cleaning up the house. We're talking about Oneness caller. He has a whole different way of cleaning up the house. So I have to clean up every day. I will clean up every day, but trust me, it's not going to be a general cleaning. It's going to be me just kind of sweeping up some things, dusting some things, putting some clothes up, folding, washing, and things like that. His cleaning is much extensive. And so my thing is, okay, if you want that type of extensive cleaning, that's going to come maybe 3 times a month. That's not going to be every day. When you come from your childhood, you come with your morals, you come with your values and, how you was raised. But that don't work in your marriage when you two are together. So you got to sit down and say, okay, now I know you did this over here when you were living with your parents, but over here, it's not going to work for this household. So we're going to have to change this up, because everything is subject to change when you're married. Everything is subject to change when you're married. So that's becoming one in the flesh. Very difficult. The next one is becoming one in the spirit. Making sure that you guys are believing in the same God and the same word. I just believe that when you have different religions, I think it's kind of difficult, because like, say for instance, Kwanzaa and Christmas is different if you have a different religion. And so, you got to make sure that you're able to deal with both religions, whereas that you both can compromise and make sure you are respecting and honoring your partner's religion. Becoming one in the spirit is praying together. Mute your phone, caller. Pray, if you can, mute your phone. Praying together, fasting together, attending church services together. You gotta, even if your partner doesn't want to go to church, this is what I do my children. I tell them, because this is you need to become one in the spirit. So this is what I do. I said, I'll cook some breakfast, and I'll have on the television. I'll get my TV ministry going. Put on TD Jakes or some type of word and have them sit right in the kitchen and get the word at the same time. Okay, you don't want to go to church? Okay, we're going to do it this way. You don't want to do it that way? Once you get up in the morning, because you're getting up, the children gets up at 12 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to be having some church music on there playing, because you missed the morning service. Now, I'm not going to force you to go to church, but me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And so, you just have to have that oneness in the spirit to make sure you both are on the same page. The last one is becoming one in the mind. Thinking the same thoughts about one another. Even in his time of being weak in his flesh, you got to be thinking good thoughts of your husband. Because if you ask God to do something to him out of spite, it's going to be done to you as well. Because you guys are one. You're one unit in the sight of God. If you're talking about your partner to your friends and he this and that and I don't like this and that, understand, when you putting that curse on him, you're putting that curse on you as well. Do your best to cast down anything that exalts itself against God, against his thoughts, against his word. Make sure your thoughts as pure as possible, because if you don't, it's going to show on the outward. So if you're talking to your husband and you're feeling resentment in the inside, trust me, it's going to come out. It's going to come out when you guys get into an argument. Just listen for it. Just listen for it. It'll come out on what you're thinking. And so you got to be making, try making confessions for your partner. God, I'm believing you to change him. God, I'm believing you to have him to talk to me a different way. I'm believing you to cause him to speak to me more gentle, God. I'm believing you, God, to cause him to be more affectionate towards me. Ask me how I'm doing. Talk to me. Engage in conversation with me. You got to put those things out before God. But sometimes they just not affectionate individuals. And so you got to make sure you bring that together and make sure that you guys are becoming one in the mind and working towards what is good. The oneness cannot be divided. If you both are present and emotionally available, because a lot of times A lot of times when our partner is distracted outside and doing something else, and it doesn't have to be just on a case of adultery, but on at work or whatever have you, your partner may not be emotionally available for you. And women, we are emotional creatures. So if that is not met, then there's a possibility that can make us vulnerable. We're the weaker vessels, and our husband is supposed to dwell with us according to knowledge. That is biblical. So whatever he knows about us, he is supposed to deal with it, and he's supposed to be the head. But the one thing we ask from our partners is make sure you emotionally available, because we need that. By the end of the day, we're already emotionally drained. If it's not the children, it's helping out a friend. If it's not helping out a friend, it's helping out a stranger. If it's not that, it's tending to our aging parents. If it's not that, it's something else, because we are natural nurturers. We're givers. We give until we have no more to give, and we need our husband to build us up after we have given to the world, because we're built that way. We're just built that way. And so we need them to be emotionally available. So that's being one in the mind. Okay? So for me, oneness demands to be single-minded. When your mind's, you can't always be between two opinions. I done seen so many couples, you debate at home, you debate in the street. I remember, this was years ago. We were like young in our 20s, 50s now, but when we was in our 20s, we would be disrespectful out in the talking to each other, any kind of way out in public, like we ain't got no sense. And, it's not easy to tell that that's probably what's going on at home. If you are arguing, if you are disrespecting your partner out in public, you already know what's going on at home. You guys may have lost some respect. You need to gain that back. You need to get that back, because there comes a time when, you can't do that. You have to outgrow some things. You got to always be changing. Things should always be changing. You got to grow together. And then you got to make sure your partner sees your growth, and you got to be observant to see his growth. Because a lot of times couples, they don't separate because they're tired of each other. They separate because they have outgrown each other. Not because they're tired, but they have outgrown each other. And so we always need to be looking for that. So when you are one in mind, you have the ability to see the same thing with the same eyes and the same ears, and listen with understanding and dance to the same tune. The same tune. It takes a great deal of effort to be one, because there's a lot that goes on, but it doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be a duty, and it doesn't have to be a job. Oneness is not to suppress you. It's not to suppress you, who you are. It's not to take anything from you, but it's to develop the union so that it's not easily broken. So how else you think that a woman or a man can be distracted on the outside of the home? It is our partner's duty to be committed and faithful to his wife or to her husband, because he chose this person for eternity, and to be faithful to his children. But the only reason when a woman can be distracted or a man can be distracted is if there is no oneness between them. Then the enemy can come in and wreak havoc, because there's too much space there. There's too much space there. I say all the time, there is no way a husband should be going out to a nightclub by himself. Absolutely no way. There is no way that a woman, this is different for a woman because she may be going out with her friends. But don't try to do that. Don't try to do that more than once a month. You need to be spending that time with your spouse, with your partner, and making sure you guys are so jam-packed, so knitted together that even when you go out with your friends, you coming back to your partner and you know that it's all good. So when you leave that space, when you leave too much space, that woman will be tempted. And that's how, the Bible says there will be 7 women to 1 man. And right now you see it. They just want the title. They don't care if the man is married. They don't care about the ring. They just care about not being alone, not having the label of being single. So, I speak in the book about it's not the woman's fault alone, but it's also the married man's fault. Because you're committed and you are in a marriage. You are bound. You are, you're on lockdown. You're off the market. There's absolutely no way you should be sitting down mingling and talking to a person, about your personal affairs, especially your wife. Because if it had been me in my 30s, because I had my share now, but if it had been me in my 30s, I would say, you know what, this sounds personal. Sounds like this is supposed to be spoken, to your wife. You need to go home. You take your things and you go home. You don't need to be out here. You're vulnerable. There's a lady in the Bible in Proverbs. She would sit at the window when her husband would go on a long journey, and she will wait till the simple man, the Bible calls him a simple man, waits till that simple man walks past and invites him up to her room, and her room is decked out with rose petal and all to weave him in. Her husband is at work, hard working, left at midnight through the crack of dawn. He is out working, and he left his woman home unsatisfied. And this is why when he goes out to work, she go out to play, because there was too much space. You wasn't emotionally available, and you wasn't there for your wife. Did he cause her to do that? No, he didn't. But because y'all had that gap and that space between you guys, there was no oneness. So that's how the enemy got in, to wreak havoc. And so we got to understand that. We got to understand that if it's too much space, you can tell when you and your partner are disconnected. There's a feeling that you get. It's like an alone feeling. It's like I'm not paying attention feeling. It's like you in one room, he in the other room. It's like you guys are not talking, or you're not having much conversation. It's like no kisses. It's like not even a hug when you walk in the door. It's not even a good evening. That is too much space. That means that you guys are disconnected. It means that you're disconnected. So you need to be aware when there's no harmony going on between you guys. When was the last time you ever had a good conversation with your husband? I mean, when you left that conversation, you was like, oh man, I feel close to him now. Because women, we feel closer when you give us more, we're going to give you more. Whatever you put in us, we're going to give it back to you. You give us a conversation, you're going to get your dinner. You're gonna get the things that you should be getting from a wife, because it's the favor of God. We are the favor that comes into a man's life. The Bible says that when a man finds a wife, he finds favor. We are the favor of God. So we come in his life and we know what we need to do. But we are distracted in doing so when you don't give us what we need. Let me take you back to Adam and Eve. When Adam and Eve was in the garden, and I told you they were holding hands, they were one, and talking amongst themselves and just having a peaceful life in the garden. And you had the serpent watching. But realize that Eve was not seduced until she got alone. See, the serpent didn't come to them as a couple. He came to Eve because, first of all, he knew Eve was weak and Eve didn't have the plan. So he went to Eve, and then that's when they fell from the garden. And what happened when they fell? They got kicked out of the house. They got kicked out of the house because they didn't somehow, Eve looked away for a minute, Adam looked away for a minute, and the serpent came right on in and seduced her. So that's why it's always good to communicate and have that conversation with your husband. Okay. I want to give you 3 nuggets. 3 nuggets is 1. The O, it stands for observe. Observe your partner's movements. Observe his conversations. Observe the countenance on his face, because this can help you recognize when he's dealing with a personal struggle. This can help you recognize when your husband is in trouble. If you love him, you're going to help him. Eve took charge. She took charge in the wrong way, but she took charge. Okay, so observe. O in one is observe. The N is for nurture. When you see something, you're not sure, you pray about it. But when you are sure, you say something. When you see something, pray about it, then say something. Why should he struggle alone when he has you? Women are prayer warriors naturally. We can spark up a prayer any minute and God will hear us. Why? Because we're the weaker vessel. We're the weaker vessel. And God knows we need that. He's sensitive to our cry. And that's why we build a house. We build the house because we know what to pray for. We know what the house should look like. We know how the house should function. So we got to stand our ground. Don't blink. Observe. And when you observe it, and then you nurture it. Because the Bible says that our partners will be won over by our conduct and our conversation. You can do this. You can do this. The E in one is empathy. We have to have the capacity to understand or feel what your partner is experiencing from within. And we need to help him. If he does not want your help, then that's a whole different story. That's a whole different conversation. Then you need to sit down with him and tell him what your role is. And remind him of what his role is. Because sometimes we get lost and we forget what role. Sometimes the women got to wear the pants. Why should we wear the pants? Let me tell you how to wear them. My son, he's 31 years old and he doesn't want to grow up yet. I don't know why. He just doesn't want to grow up yet. And all the time I tell him, if you're not ready, say you're not ready. But what you don't need to do is accept anybody hand in marriage, or you don't need to ask anyone to marry you if you're not going to, work together, if you're not going to become one, if you're not going to submit yourself, if you're not going to become vulnerable, if you're not going to humble yourself, you're not ready. Because marriage is for grown people. And we got to make sure that our tools are right on target. So when the enemy comes knocking on our door trying to attack our house and make our house not a happy home, we got to be on guard and we got to just kill it and knock it out. Call a friend, say, look, let's pray right now. We're not going to do this. I like sage in my house. Maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I like sage in my house to keep things out, keep things peaceful. And keep things clean around here. Keep things, in order. Because what I'm not going to do at 51 years old, what I'm not going to do is deal with anything I dealt with at 20, 30, or 40.
Yes.
This is what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to do it. Yes. I'm just not going to do it. So, I'm not. So, anybody has any questions before I go on and pray us out?
Is there any way we can extend this for 5 more weeks?
Yeah, we can. We got one more week. We got one more week next week, and
for New Year's.
We can do that. We can do that for you. Yeah, we can do that.
I can't speak for anyone else. Me personally,
Mm-hmm.
the way you are explaining this
Mm-hmm.
is easier to receive it. I got the book. I read the book.
Oh, praise
It's
the Lord.
amazing.
Praise the Lord. Thank you.
To hear your voice, to hear the passion, to know that you've been there and you know exactly what it took to help you and your husband to get over the obstacles that were placed in your life.
Yes.
So the one is so important because some men are not affectionate and they're not emotional connection. And they don't know how to connect with that. That means a lot to me because now I understand where I'm at and I have the tools to move on and move forward.
Yes.
But I think beyond the vows, there are so many women who need this book in their lives.
I know.
And they need to hear it from the author. I just didn't sit down and write a book. I sit down and wrote you my life experience.
Yes. Yeah.
I know your growth. I grew up with you. To hear you speak and to hear you come forward, it's amazing.
My God.
I know the little girl with the pigtails. But
Yeah.
now I know this minister who got God in her and just willing to let him use her as his vessel. And that is, to me, is one amazing, amazing, amazing blessing for me.
Yes, ma'am.
You know,
Thank
and
you,
I
Jesus.
think that 5 weeks is not enough time to cover a broken marriage.
Yeah. Yep.
I think we all need some more help. 'Cause I guess the thing of it is, you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not the only one going through it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have daughters, and they got their own deal. So reading the Beyond the Vows has helped me to educate myself so I can educate my daughters.
Yes, Lord. Yes.
You know, that's how I see it. You know, that, you know, ooh, I can't even begin.
My God.
You got that much time. Wow.
Thank you for, letting me know that. Thank you. It's a shameful topic, but the conversation needs to be had, because when we go through, when we experience this adulterous affairs, we go back without the tools. We go back without the tools. We go back as resentful and angry and bitter as we've ever been. And, but we love the person. And it's a switch you can't, it's like you just can't turn it off. I always tell Byron, if I seen that you wasn't trying to work with me, because he really wanted to be delivered. This happens in the Black community. They told him, if you don't have 2 or more women, you ain't doing nothing. And so he always thought that he had to have someone on the side. You know why I found out? He was more insecure than I was.
Yes.
And so, but looking, right now where we are, I'm trying to relay the message that you can get over. If your husband is willing, sometimes it just be something that was just ordained of old. It's so many things. A lot of times people think they've gotten to the bottom of it, but I experienced it more than once because I was only picking at the problem. I never got to the root of the adultery situation. And so it even caused me to go out and cheat my own self, because I couldn't figure out why you kept cheating on me and you said you loved me. And I couldn't understand, once he got caught, why was he so remorseful and didn't want to eat, and he became suicidal. So it was not making sense to me. It was not making sense. But these were morals and values that was put in him as a child. When he got to be a teen or whatever have you, and he thought this was right. He thought it was all good. He thought that because I came back, he thought that I didn't mind him cheating.
Yeah.
And so that's why they go back.
Yeah.
And that's why they go back out, because they figure, okay, well, she came back. She don't really care. But no, I did care, because every time you told me you wasn't going to do it, I believed you. I believed you. And so right now, where me and my husband is, oh my God. Well, we must have fell in love over maybe 100 times, because we divorced and we remarried because God told me to go back. And when I used to think that he was my enemy. No, it was the enemy inside of him trying to crush me, was trying to destroy me. I know I was under the grace of God, because what he was doing, even though I got revenge, and you got to go back, I have seen the link so you can listen to that testimony. But sometimes we as women, we want to make sure that they know that you hurt me. But why do we hurt ourselves in order to relay that message? Why would we go out and get another guy and sleep with somebody, put ourselves in a worse situation just because we want them to know you hurt me, but you still didn't leave him? Don't hurt yourself because you can't hurt him. And that's what I did. I was hurting I was hurting myself. And so, right now where we are, with much affirmation from him, this is how we got back on track, because he constantly told me, I'm never going to do that to you again. I would be so insecure to go out, in the midst of the public and be around beautiful women. I was so insecure, and all of these things were imposed on me out of cheating. And a lot of women, we're in marriages, we're not happy, but you love him. So if you love him, I suggest you do what it takes to get that love back, and you find it. And if you can't find it, then you pray to God and ask him what he wants you to do. But do not stay in that marriage with you both loving each other, and the devil has got you bound, and you cannot enjoy one another anymore. because God can tear that down and rebuild it. And he did it for us. And I love my husband. I love my husband with every morsel in my body. And he loves me the same. Some of these stories, I had to get his approval, and I had to ask him, well, what happened doing this? Well, what did she say? And then we got to understand that when these women cheat with our husbands, that don't mean nothing to the husbands. And I'm like, well, how can you say that? Because it mean a whole lot to the wife. And the woman, if she, when I spoke to two of the women, I had to minister to them. So I'm like, okay, so what do you do now? So now that you in a situation, why you tell me now? Because he's trying to break it off with you? You should have told me the minute you guys, got together, and you should have said, go back home to your wife. So don't come to me now when you're in trouble. What you want me to do? I'm your enemy.
Yes.
And we're women. We're supposed to look out for each other. We're women. You're supposed to have my back. I'm supposed to have it. What about sisterhood?
Yes.
What about sister love?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, it's...
Your platform is not big enough. You need... See, these words here, if we can get your message out in this world, you will be saving a lot of women of all races. Oh my God, you don't even understand. Your platform has got to get bigger. It's going to get bigger.
Yeah, I'm just doing what God told me.
Get bigger. Well, yeah. This is my dream. I always say that if I had the opportunity, I wanted a woman's group. I wanted to speak to the young girls that are coming up, that are going through the same problems